In this video, I continue mission improvement by skirting controversy and possibly invoking the ire of the iRacing police when I use the driving line in an attempt to figure out exactly where on the track I am really supposed to be. And all this from an older gamer's perspective. Week 3, the Roval. Welcome to the Roval in America and the Production Car Challenge series in iRacing, and the third week of my video series Mission Improvement. If you missed what this series is all about, I explain it in this introduction video, link below, but the too long didn't read version is that I am trying various different methods to improve my racecraft over the entirety of Season 2 2025 while sticking with the one car. This week I am stepping it up a notch and moving away from the rookies to the Production Car Challenge, which is not only a D-license race but also a multi-class race where you race with different cars on the same track at the same time. And if that sounds crazy, it's because it mostly is. I detailed how multi-class racing works in this video here, which is a bit old, but the underlying message is I am racing in an MX-5 against other MX-5s, while at the same time BMW M2s, GR86s and sometimes even the occasional Renault Clio are also racing on the same track at the same time. However, although I am sharing the same track as the other cars, I am only competing with the MX-5s, which is handy as the M2s really don't hang about. What all this means is that constantly being overtaken by faster traffic tends to add a huge wild card to racing other cars that are in your class. Another peculiarity with the race this week is the track itself, the Roval in Charlotte, America. This track is a hybrid of oval, used mostly by NASCAR type events, and a road track, hence the name Roval. This gives these long sweeping banked bends and also some very sharp turns and 2 chicanes. What could possibly go wrong? This week, the pace analysis tool in new iRacing UI is telling me that an average lap for someone of my iRating, which is currently around 1300, should be about 1 minute 33. But that if I wanted to be on the podium, I needed to run a 1 minute 31 lap. In previous weeks, the pace tool has been scarily accurate, but this week, with the added intervention of faster cars slowing the pace of the MX-5s down, this prediction was a little off. In fact, I found that while the average lap I was putting in was indeed a 1 minute 33, the winners of these races were mostly hitting best times of around 1 minute 32. Still a good estimate from the pace analysis tool, but wrong by a second. Looking at it either way, it's still apparent that I need to run around a 1 minute 32 if I want to be a winner and get some consistent 1 minute 33s to have any hope of being anywhere near the podium. And to do that, I need to concentrate on my corner entries and exits, something I found problematic last week at Summit Point. On that track, I was having lots of issues that didn't allow me to maximize acceleration away from one particular corner, mostly because my car was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. And a number of you commented on precisely that problem and pointed out how little of the track I was actually using. So this week I'm going back to basics, and in an attempt to fine-tune my track positioning, I am going to turn on the driving line.
Oh no, there's that angry mob again.
Using the driving line. Last week I looked at improving my trail braking using the brake and throttle overlay included in Trophy AI. I also combined this overlay with the beeps that indicate an ideal braking marker. Here you can see me going round the Roval in the MX-5 and getting the braking points via the beeps, and I can also monitor the overlays for how much brake pressure I should be applying and when I should be coming back on throttle and how aggressive I should be doing that. However, one thing I was getting wrong last week was failing to use all of the track. This week I'm going to stick with the Trophy AI method of learning the the braking and acceleration points of each corner, but I'm going to combine it with the driving line, which is found in the iRacing settings tab. This displays a guiding line on the track indicating the optimal position for your car on each corner. It also displays green markers to indicate when you can accelerate, grey for lifting off the pedal, and red for braking. I am going to mostly ignore those colours and use the overlay for the function of just finding out whereabouts on the track I need to be, and thus hopefully maximizing my track usage. Generally, I found placing the line about the center of the car from the cockpit view was the best place for it to be, although I think maybe I could have been a bit further over. The point is, following this line allows me to figure out where I should be on the track and also read the track ahead in a slightly more organic way than I've been doing in the past. So why didn't I use the racing line from week one? Well, that's mostly down to what I've read or been told, or really just not fully understanding the function of the driving line. The arguments against using the driving line, which can be found all over the internet, and sometimes even posting on Reddit a video that contains the driving line, can bring down on that unfortunate person the wrath of the iRacing police. They hate the driving line with a passion and claim it stops drivers figuring out braking markers or learning to drive in traffic. And while that is mostly true, it's also mostly not true at the same time. In fact, this thought pattern that learning something the easy way means you can never develop or evolve a better skill set does seem to assume that people are idiots. My experience, having met many sim racers over the years, online or at the Sim Racing Expo, is that most are in fact not idiots. And just because they've learned something the easy way through the driving line, for example, doesn't mean they can't use that information going forward to learn how to become a better driver. That's not to say the driving line is not without its dangers. You do have to be careful about sticking a little too doggedly to that line, as this can lead you to crash out if someone behind you is not driving with, shall we say, the best of intentions. For example, here is me coming down towards the chicane before the start-finish line, and I have a car directly on my bumper. I, of course, want to follow the optimal line through this chicane because that's the best one to maximize my speed. But to do that, I have to brake at this position here. And when I do that, this happens. Yeah, that's me in the pits on the final lap and missing the end of the race. However, here is another example where I don't follow that line. Again, I have a car behind me, not as close, but instead of taking the prescribed driving line, I move over here. Now you can see the other driver is confused, so much so I'm actually able to beat them through the chicane, even though I was using a substandard driving line. So the point is, if you can follow the driving line when the driving conditions are ideal, but adapt that driving line when those conditions are not ideal, then you are probably going to benefit from practice laps with the driving line on.
I just wanted everything to be perfect.
Results and race of the week. So with all that practicing using the driving line with the trophy AI overlays along with the beeps, how did I do this week outside of the rookies? I only managed to get on track for 5 races, partly because I think this production card challenge only comes up once an hour, where the rookies are every 50 minutes. So a once an hour racing window can make scheduling somewhat challenging. However, looking at my tracking sheet, you can see that despite the increasing strength of field, I was able to get on the podium twice in 3rd place each time, and that my best lap times were consistently in the 1 minute 33 second range. And even with the fierce and heavy traffic, most of my average lap times were fairly decent. In all, I managed to increase my safety rating by 0.9 this week and my I rating by 114, taking my total I rating to over 1,500 for the first time in my iRacing career, which is cool. This week, my favourite race is not the one where I was on the podium, but in fact the last race I managed this week. Here we are in the pits where this race begins with a rolling start, and it's at this point I remembered how eclectic this series can be, by which I mean sometimes it's the Wild West of iRacing with some very unpredictable behavior occurring. As an example, here's a car who decides to just drive up the middle of these waiting cars, colliding with a few on the way and earning them a 4x before the race has even started. I made a mental note of this car, Red 27. I made it a top priority to avoid this driver whenever possible. Just to mention here, as the car set off, the driving line is only on when I'm doing practice laps. When I race, like here, I have the driving line off as I find it distracting in heavy traffic. However, for science, I have left it on in 2 of the replays you see here, so you can judge if I'm doing okay with this week's driving line. So, that all being said, here we are now, coming down towards the first chicane and the start line and the beginning of this very exciting race. And we're all through the chicane, I think mostly alive. Which, is something you have to be careful at the start of this race. And here's that red number 27 who was driving down the middle of the pack at the start of the race. So I've come off the throttle there, moved away from my driving line, as I described earlier in this video, let him go. I don't want any trouble from him right at this stage of the race. There's enough going on around me. Look, there's crashed cars, there's cars coming on from the pits. It's all happening in these early stages of the game. And up ahead, I'm sure the M2s and the GR86s are also in chaos land, crashing into each other. And as the slower MX5s come round the corner, we start to see the littered corpses of these cars all over the track. And it's our job then to try and avoid them as much as we can, which isn't easy because they seem to have their blinders on and they can't see any other car on the track other than themselves. Anyway, we're coming around the track now. I'm not really paying a lot of attention to the driving line because although we did a warm-up lap, there wasn't a lot of warming up of the tyres going on. You tend to creep around the track quite slowly in these multi-car races. You're trying to keep a gap between the next class in front of you, and that's because you don't want to be too close because of all this chaos that can happen in the opening laps. Anyway, the second lap, effectively, after the warm-up lap, which is lap 1, if you see what I mean, is where I'm warming up the tyres. And so I'm not pushing the car too hard. I'm not really worrying too much about the driving line either because I'm not pushing the car to its absolute limit. And we're coming into the chicane here. A little bit of heavy braking now caused a little bit of squirreling on the back of the car, but I'm through safely. And I can concentrate now on the cars in front of me and who I need to overtake and, more importantly, really, who I need to be careful of. Got a little bit of a gap, but I'm not too worried at this stage in the race. The rookie races are 12 minutes. It's a sprint race. It's over relatively quickly. And this is still a sprint race, but it's a 25-minute sprint race. So twice the time duration of the MX5 rookies. And in that sort of extra time that you have, it's wise to be a little bit more tactical about trying to make up the pace and make up the gap between you and the cars in front. In my experience, the best thing you can do at this stage of the opening of the race is just to settle down, find your rhythm, get on that driving line, make sure you're aware of your braking markers, make sure of everything that you need. While you've got this luxury of time, you're not really competing in this early part of the race. That does change quite quickly. As you can see, look, I've caught up with this car in front of me because he's made a few mistakes. In fact, he's gone wide there, so I think he may have caught some damage on there, so he was getting out of my way because he knows he's slower. He may check into the pits on the way round, I'm not sure, but he's definitely having trouble keeping up with me, so maybe some nose damage there. Nope, there he goes into the pits, so yeah. Picked up some fatal damage on the second chicane. And yeah, again, I've now got the track open in front of me. I'm free to put in the best lap I can to try and follow the guidance that I got from Trophy AI, where it was telling me where I should brake on this one. Lifting, lifting, lifting. And yeah, now accelerating in. Come hard on that corner. Down this straight, out on the wide. Here, lifting, lifting, brake. Down to second, cut in as tight as I can, try and hold on to that corner. Come in here, lifting. Driving line tells me to brake there, but I don't find that's necessary. I just lift. We're lifting here, and then we're aiming for that yellow line as we come round that very unforgiving concrete wall on that corner. A lot of people lose their cars there and have to go to the pits or are completely wiped out from the race without a second chance. And all of that, all of these tiny little details that I've been picking up over these weeks of mission improvement have now led me to this point where within a lap, I'm catching the cars in front of me. I am being competitive. And that pleases me because being competitive in iRacing is so much more fun than just being cannon fodder and being overtaken or lapped. And we're coming into the chicane here now. It's already lap 4 and I'm closing on these cars in front of me. There's a blue one and 2 cars in front of him is that troublesome red car. I'm going to have to be careful of him as I catch up on this pack. We've got 4 cars in total there. I'm running 7th, so this is the mid pack. That's okay. There's still a lot of this race left to run. There's about 12 laps on this race, and we are only a third of the way through that. And so I really want to sort of hunker down now and try to take advantage, really, of any mistakes that happen in front of me. There was a mistake there. This car's got a little bit slower, but up ahead I can see smoke, and that troublesome red 27 car, he's impacted the wall at speed, and I managed to find a way around him as he leaks off to the side there. And another car, yeah, not quite sure what he did there, but it wasn't pretty, was it, as he tumbled over and over. I'm guessing he's going to the pits as well. And all of a sudden, I've jumped up the rankings and I'm doing reasonably well. The car that came past me there was an M2. Faster traffic, not my race. All I have to do with those cars is keep out of their way and hope that really they don't get in my way. And then we come through the first chicane there, trying to cut the track as the driving line suggests. Remember, I don't have the driving line in my cockpit view when I'm racing. I've just put it there for you and your personal entertainment. And we're coming round now to the second chicane. I feel fairly safe to take this braking as I want because the car behind me is quite a way away. I'm trying to keep that chicane as straight as I possibly can, but whatever I did, it wasn't as good as this blue car who comes rocketing past me and takes the corner on the inside and steals a place from me. That's tragic. But that's how it went from there. I managed to get in front of him because of all the crash nonsense that was going on with the red car, and he was the better driver and stole that place back again. But it's okay. I'm on his tail now, and we'll see what the rest of the race can develop for me. Into this corner here, I like to lift here, a little bit on the brake, down into second to give me a bit of extra rotation, and then slam the throttle again. Lifting here, the driving line tells me to brake on that corner as well, but I don't find that's necessary. Lift here and aim for that yellow line straight into the curve now. Let the car come down of its own volition, and then I tend to go up a little bit earlier than the driving line suggests here. I'm actually following it on this particular lap, but usually I like to go up a little bit earlier. Braking on this area and tight into the chicane. Try and avoid that second bumper if you can, because that one seems to unsettle me more than the first one does. And that has led me to being on this guy's bumper now. I'm not sure if he's making mistakes or those particular chicanes I can just do better than him, but I do know that he can do this chicane better than me. So this may be the point where, yes, he pushes forward and he's got a better lead on me. So we can say the first chicane, I'm better at it. The second chicane, he's better at it. Is that going to be enough to tip the balance? Is that going to be enough for me to be able to get in front of him at some point and steal the lead back from him? We're going to have to see. We're going to have to see. It's a nail-biting race, this. Look, we've got 3 of us in the mid-pack racing for this position of, I guess, 3rd place we're looking at here. Yeah, this is 3rd place is that car in front of me. 4th is the blue one, and I am in 5th. So it's, yeah, we're racing for a podium place if we can get it. If we can be the front of this middle pack here, we will be on the podium. I'm not quite sure where second and first are. They must be way up the pack, but you can't discount that yet, particularly in this type of race, because crashes are happening all the time with the faster traffic and trying to get out their way, or just simply being nudged off the track by them. Anything can happen, really anything. So even if you see the leaders are way in front of you, don't worry about it. You might catch them up. And I have caught this blue car up now. He made a small mistake on that chicane that I'm better at than him. And so now I'm in front of him. But this is worrying because we're coming up on the second chicane, and I know for a fact he's better at this than me. So I'm coming off the driving line now, and he becomes slightly confused by that. He was like, what's he doing? What's he doing? And so I was able to maintain my place. I didn't want to stay directly in front of him because I thought if I do that and his braking is later than mine, he's going to nudge me off the track. And I've had that, as I've shown earlier in this video. It's completely ruined my race. These shunts that you can get, if they take you off and you hit the wall, you do have to go back to the pits. You are there for a couple of minutes. You are effectively out of the race. You can come back on again and maybe make up some room and get a 10th place and get maybe one iRating point or a minimal amount of iRating negative points, but it's still worth coming out to do that. But it's also slightly disheartening because you know that effectively you're no longer part of this race. You're no longer competitive. You're really just cannon fodder again. And I hate being just cannon fodder again. I mean, I've been cannon fodder for a long time in iRacing while I've been learning how to do this, how to move the car around the track, how to figure out trail braking and all that sort of stuff. And all I've been is just a number on a score sheet, and right at the very bottom of that score sheet for other cars to capitalize on. But now that I'm actually learning what I'm supposed to be doing, I am competitive at last. And as we come into the chicane, we have a M2 there who loses control, and I just managed to steer around him, but unfortunately give the blue car a bit of a nudge as we begin lap 8. Blue car doesn't hesitate. He takes the lead away from me. That's what I was talking about with these multi-car races. You get something like that happen in front of you, you have to react to it and just hope you can survive. I did. Got a 4X for my troubles, but hey, no worries. That's racing for you. And we're on, but the two cars that are in front of me have gained some distance with that particular incident, and I'm going to have to catch that up. I've still got a lot of the race left, so I'm still confident I can do that, but I need to focus on what I'm doing. And right now I'm looking at the driving line I'm taking, and I think I'm wandering too far off the driving line, and I'm kind of panicking because I want to catch these cars up again. I'm disappointed that crash at that chicane cost me so much distance between them, and that I lost a place as well. And so suddenly I'm a little bit unfocused in what I should be doing, and I'm hoping that I can drag that focus back again and become in the groove, the driver that I was before that crash occurred. And I think, yeah, I'm coming through this chicane. It does look like I've settled down again, which is good. Because if you're an unsettled driver and you're just running on raw nerves, you're probably going to crash again. And that really is very disappointing when that happens, if it's only yourself to blame. Coming through the chicane here again, and we're grouped up quite tightly, but the MX-5 right at the front of this pack is a lap down, so we're not too worried about him as long as he's not going to get in our way. But from my point of view, it's kind of working to me because he's slowing down the cars in front of me. The blue and black car have swapped places now, and so they're going to be tight to catch. I have my money on that blue car being third place. I think he's got the speed and the talent to get that position, and if the MX-5s that are in 1 and 2 are unfortunate enough to have a crash, he could finish in first place. He really is that good. I think he was unlucky at the start of the race and had to start at the pits again for some reason. I'm not quite sure what happened there, but he got a slow start, but he's making that up. And he's going all the way through. And he's certainly putting a lot of distance between me and the black car in front of me. In fact, if he doesn't make any mistakes, I can't see him losing that place because of the distances he's putting in already. But as we come round the chicane, he does in fact overcook it and slides off into the barrier. Oh, that must have been so disappointing for him. I think what he did there was he just nicked the curb with his front wheel, and it was enough to throw him off into a spin and away into the barrier. Done that myself countless amount of times. You overcook it slightly, you're gone. And we're into the next chicane, and I've got this car in front of me. And this car, driven by Samuel, is all that stands between me and third place, and this would be my third place of the week. So I'm quite keen to get this. I really am, and I think I can, because I think as our driving styles are going, we're about equal. Although there are, again, like this blue car I was having earlier, there are some corners where I am better than Samuel, and there are some corners where Samuel is better than me. Here, I think I've got the edge on him because I've closed the distance. I'm coming in now on his rear bumper, hoping really that as we get down towards this embanked curve, I can try and get close enough to draft him. That's tricky because, of course, there's a chicane at the end of it. And so you've got to really work out your braking markers. And the amount of time that you're in this area trying to drive seems to go by like the flash. It really does. Okay, and we're into the chicane, and I am closing on him. But we've got faster traffic, and it's a blue flag for me. I have to give way to these cars, but that's fine. They are so fast, they can take the outside line, and they're gone in a flash, which is good, because I get really nervy when those big, fast cars come up so close behind me. But that hesitation on that chicane of letting those faster cars through has given Samuel a little bit more distance on me as we came through that final chicane, and we're over the line for lap 11 now. 6 more laps left in this race. 6 more laps for me to close the gap between me and Samuel, and then hopefully create a wide gap between me and him so that I can claim this third place comfortably. If I just overtake him, he's going to be going for it, and there is always the risk that we're going to crash out. So it's got to be a clean overtake from me, and it's got to be a consistent lap time after that so that I can lengthen the distance between us. We're coming through here again. You can see I am definitely better on that corner than him, and I have again closed the gap. Not as much as I would like, and there's going to be limited amount of drafting capability as we hit this embanked turn. No, I'm way too far away from him, and again there's faster cars coming down the outside, which is slightly putting me off. I'm hoping it's going to put Samuel off as well, but it doesn't seem to be. He seems to have weathered that like a pro. And we're coming in on the chicane now. I'm going to try and cut it deep but not overcook it like the blue car did and spin out onto the wall. That would be tragic at this stage in the race. We can cut across there. That's allowed for whatever reason. I've never figured out why we're allowed to drive across that part of the track, but apparently we are. So hey, the driving line said I can do it, so I'm doing it. The driving line does not steer me wrong, no pun intended. And we're through on this chicane, and I'm actually taking that a little bit better than Samuel and catching him, but not really by much as he gets away from me again. This corner I'm not as good at. I think that Samuel is better than me. I'm not quite sure what I'm doing there. Probably I'm overplaying the brakes. Coming through there, flat out. Again, the driving line says lift, but I go flat out. Little touch of the brakes here, lifting again. Let yourself go wide, and then back on the throttle. Go onto that grass. That's okay. That's not an off track there. Also, for whatever reason, just putting one tyre on the grass is fine. And down into second on this corner to get a bit of rotation. And we're into this corner now. And no, I'm still not close enough to be able to capitalise on drafting once we hit this section of the track. Look, I'm just too far away. That's disappointing. If I'm going to catch him, if I'm going to take that place from him, this is going to be where it's going to happen. Almost definitely. Either this particular straight on that embanked curve, or More riskier, the next straight and banked curve after this chicane. It's more risky because there is even less time here to perform an overtake manoeuvre than there is in the last one. And the last one is a painfully small window of opportunity. And whatever's going to happen in this race, I have to say, I am having enormous fun racing Samuel. He's really pushing me to my limit, and I probably am putting in some great lap times. More fast cars coming down here. Now this is a bit dodgy because there's not too much room to overtake, and he's down and in between me and Samuel, which is exactly where I don't need him to be because he's going to slow me down. These faster cars tend to be slower on these twisty corner bits than the MX-5s, which are quite nimble. Of course, on the straights, they're blasting away like rocket ships, but here you can see he is slowing me down, and he's allowed the gap between me and Samuel to become even bigger, and I'm going to have to try and get that back now once this green car disappears, which I am hoping is going to be soon. Well, when I say hoping, I'm hoping it's going to just disappear rather than actually crash in front of me and possibly take me out. But here we go. We're on the embanked section again, and the gap between me and Samuel is just enormous now. I'm not really sure what I can do about this. I'm hoping that the chicanes that I can do better than him and the curves that I can do better than him is going to be enough for me to make up that distance. And I've got it here, but as we come out of the chicane, I'm wondering if he's going to pull away again. But no, I've got him now. I'm on his bumper and I'm drafting him now. This is close enough to draft, but as I said earlier, the window of opportunity to overtake on this section of the track is terribly small, and I don't get it. And as we come into the chicane, I have to fall in line behind him. Otherwise, I'm going to risk crashing us out. And yet again, we've got another faster car coming up behind us. And yet again, he's inserting himself between me and Samuel. Exactly, again, where I don't need these faster cars to be. This is what I was saying earlier in the video. This is why these average lap times on this particular track are kind of meaningless to look at, because you're getting this sort of thing going on all the time, and it slows you down. It really does. And you cannot get any consistency when you're constantly being overtaken by slower cars who then get into the twisty sections and slow you down. It actually worked for me because the faster car got in front of Samuel, and so it slowed Samuel down, and so now I am able to catch him up. Still not quite close enough to appreciate any drafting qualities from his car, so it's just a flat out acceleration, and we're both driving the same car, so there's no advantage to be had for either one of us, which is a shame for me. And there's a faster car coming down there, so I've had to come off my driving land now to let him through, because boy, was he fast. And we come through, yeah, okay. I mean, maybe Samuel was a bit phased by that faster car coming up on him in the chicane there, and he slowed down a little bit. To my eye, perceivably, I'm a little bit close to Samuel now than I was, but he's still a second and a bit ahead of me, and I really need to close that gap if I want to be on the podium, if I want that third place. And I can tell you, I really do want that third place. Okay, I've closed the gap a little bit more now, and he's less than a second ahead of me, and we're coming into those corners where I am slightly faster than he is. And by now, as we go through these various laps, he's probably worked that out as well, and he's probably trying in some way to optimize his corners, and he's not doing too badly, and I feel that he's better on that corner than this time than he has been at previous times. But still, I'm closing on him as we come through here, and I'm getting a little bit closer each time. This is what racing is about, isn't it? Just gradually inching up on somebody. It's not all about this speeding down the track and flashing past somebody. This is this incremental distances that you gain on the car in front until you are ready to perform that overtake. And this is what I'm doing here. He's been outpacing me on various different corners, but I've been catching him up again. He's not being able to put a significant amount of distance between me and him to make this a concise victory for him. He's having to fight for it, and I am determined that he is going to have to fight me for that third place. I'm not going to give it to him willingly. There's just me and him now. Nearest other car to us is Adam at 5th place, and he's 6 seconds behind us, so that's not really a threat unless we crash. And I'm hoping that's not going to happen because we're coming across the line now. This is the last lap, and the white flag has been given. It's do or die time for me and Samuel. Whoever can do these corners coming up the best gets third place, and he is really going for it now. You can see he's going a little bit wide on his lines. He's risking as much throttle as he thinks he can possibly get away with to try and lengthen that gap between me and him, but I'm inching in on him. I really am. As we come round this corner now, he's not taking that particularly well, and I close the gap. And while I might not be close enough to draft him at this stage in the course, I'm getting there. I am closing in on him. I am creating the circumstances where he can probably see me in his mirror, and he's sweating. He knows this is the last lap. He's got to hang on to this place. He can't make a single mistake, because if he does, at these distances between our two cars, I will overtake him and I will take third place. And we're into the chicane. He's made a small mistake there, which has allowed me to close the gap to almost nothing. But it's still not close enough to draft him. And it's the final corner. And it's the small bend as well, where you don't have a very big window of opportunity to overtake him. I think I've left it too late now as we come through the final motions of this race. We've got faster traffic coming up behind us to confuse this situation as we head towards the finishing line. And I'm hoping we're not going to crash out now. But the faster car has a cooler head, and he lets us cross the finishing line without incident. Samuel taking third place there. A much-deserved podium place. Giving me a 4x there just to finish the race. Oh, well, these things happen. But what a remarkably exciting race that really was. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was such an exciting finish all the way up to the final line, all the way through those 17 laps. I took 4th place, but I don't begrudge that 3rd place to Samuel, whose driving was really very cool and gave me such a fantastic race for my money.
Enjoy, enjoy, enjoy!
Conclusions. If you have ever felt that you are just cannon fodder in the iRacing universe, my message to you in this video is don't give up. Instead, think about doing what I am doing this season. And that's not anything groundbreaking, but it is bringing in results for me personally to the point where my iRating has reached, for the first time, the giddy heights of 1,500. Yes, I know, still a long way from being an alien, but I am better than I was, much better, and my iRating trajectory is upwards, and that leaves me feeling competitive and in a position where I can analyze the issues I'm having with a particular track and do something positive about them. So, what am I doing to achieve all this? It's simple. I am firstly sticking to the one car. Secondly, I am using Garage 61 to share my telemetry via Discord. And more importantly, I'm listening to their feedback. And I'm also using Trophy AI to improve my trail braking and acceleration via overlays and the beeps this software offers. And lastly, I am using the driving line to make sure I am where I should be on the track. If you do just those 3 things, it doesn't matter if you use Garage 61 or Trophy AI or both, or one of the many competitors that offer telemetry readouts, as long as you're using some kind of telemetry reader to help diagnose your iRacing issues. Do all of that and put in the practice laps and the live racing time, and your ability and probably your iRating will, like mine, improve. Let's face it, I have been trying to reach 1,500 iRating for a long time now. But after starting Mission Improvement, I have reached this total on week 3. I mean, granted, I started at an iRating of about 900, so I didn't start from 0, but that's not bad, is it? When you consider that every time the iRating goes up, so does the strength of field. so does the strength of the competitors I am racing against. 3 weeks, I've reached my target. What can I do by week 12? Of course, it could be argued that Roval is not that difficult a track to race on, and I would mostly agree with that. However, next week, the Production Car Challenge is at WeatherTech, which has a number of very twisty turns, and that will for sure show if mission improvement really is improving my racing or not. I will be there in my MX-5. Say hello if you see me. In the meantime, I hope you found this video helpful. And until the next one, race clean, and I'll see you on track. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click the like button, and if you haven't already done so, subscribe. Click the little bell icon if you want to be notified of any future videos.